Welcome back to our channel. Are you holding on to coins that could be worth thousands, or even millions, of dollars? In this video, we reveal the most valuable US coins ever found. Let's start this.
Imagine holding a tiny copper coin in your palm. Something so ordinary that most people would barely glance at it before dropping it into a jar or handing it over as change. Now imagine that same coin quietly carrying decades of American history, national pride, mystery, and the possibility of serious money. That is exactly the story behind the United States of America 1976 no-mint mark Lincoln 1-cent penny, a coin that looks simple on the surface, but becomes absolutely fascinating the moment you start paying attention. The year 1976 was not just another year in American history. It was the bicentennial, a celebration of 200 years since the birth of the nation. Fireworks filled the skies, red, white, and blue flooded the streets, and Americans everywhere were looking back at their roots while dreaming about the future. In the middle of all that celebration, the United States Mint continued producing everyday coins for daily use. One of those coins was the Lincoln 1-cent penny, a design that had already become deeply woven into American life. At first glance, the 1976 Lincoln cent looks familiar. On the front, Abraham Lincoln's calm and thoughtful profile faces to the right, just as it has since 1909. His expression feels steady and timeless, almost as if he is watching the nation grow through the generations. Above his head is the simple word liberty, while the phrase "In God We Trust" rests along the rim. Beneath his shoulder, the date 1976 quietly marks the year this coin entered circulation. Now here is where things start to get interesting. This particular penny carries no mint mark. That small missing detail opens the door to a much bigger story. In the world of American coins, mint marks tell us where a coin was made. When a Lincoln cent from this era has no mint mark, it means it was struck at the Philadelphia Mint. During the 1970s, the Philadelphia Mint produced massive numbers of coins to meet everyday demand. These pennies traveled through countless hands, pockets, and cash registers, becoming part of daily American life. Turn the coin over, and you see the Lincoln Memorial standing tall and dignified. The words United States of America stretch across the top, while 1 cent is boldly displayed at the bottom. Between them sits the motto E pluribus unum. If you look closely, you can even see a tiny seated statue of Lincoln inside the memorial, a small detail that many people never notice. That level of craftsmanship adds depth and personality to a coin most people consider ordinary. What truly sets the 1976 no-mint mark Lincoln cent apart is not just how it looks, but what it represents. This coin was made during a time of transition in American coinage. Just a few years earlier, pennies shifted away from solid copper to a different composition. The 1976 penny still belongs to the era when the cent had a rich copper feel, giving it a warm color and a satisfying weight in the hand. That alone makes it special to collectors who appreciate the classic sound and look of older cents. For many people, the idea that a penny could be valuable sounds almost unbelievable. After all, it was created to be worth just 1 cent. It paid for newspapers, candy, and phone calls. It slipped between couch cushions and disappeared into piggy banks. Yet in the world of coin collecting, value is not determined by face value alone. Condition, rarity, demand, and historical context all play powerful roles. Most 1976 pennies lived hard lives. They were scratched, stained, worn down, and forgotten. But a small number escaped that fate. Some were set aside the moment they were minted. Others somehow avoided heavy circulation and remained in exceptional condition. These are the coins that make collectors' hearts beat faster. A penny that looks almost exactly the way it did the day it left the mint becomes something entirely different from loose change. It becomes a collectible artifact. Then, there are minting quirks and unusual characteristics. In some cases, coins were struck with exceptional sharpness, strong details, and beautiful luster. In rarer situations, production irregularities created pennies that stand out from the rest. These special examples are studied carefully, graded professionally, and admired like tiny works of art. The no-mint mark detail, combined with top-tier condition and striking quality, can transform a common cent into something extraordinary. Another reason collectors love the 1976 no-mint mark Lincoln cent is its emotional connection. People remember the bicentennial celebrations. They remember the pride, the music, the parades, and the sense of unity. Holding a coin from that year feels like holding a piece of that memory. Coins are time travelers in metal form, and this penny carries the spirit of a milestone year. The journey of a coin from pocket change to prized collectible is not instant. It takes knowledge, patience, and a trained eye. Collectors examine surface quality, color, strike strength, and preservation. They look for original mint luster that dances under light. They search for clean fields free from heavy marks. When all these elements come together in a single penny, the result can be breathtaking. What makes this even more exciting is the idea that these coins still exist out in the world. They might be tucked away in old jars, albums, or inherited collections. Someone somewhere could unknowingly possess a remarkable example. That sense of possibility is what fuels the passion of collectors. Every coin check becomes a treasure hunt, and every penny is given a second look. The 1976 no-mint mark Lincoln 1-cent penny also reminds us that value is not always obvious. Something small and overlooked can carry enormous significance. It teaches patience, curiosity, and appreciation for details. In a fast-paced digital world, this humble coin invites us to slow down and look closely. For collectors, this penny represents more than metal. It represents history, craftsmanship, and the thrill of discovery. It shows how an everyday object can rise to legendary status when all the right factors align. It proves that even the smallest denomination can hold a big story. As interest in classic American coins continues to grow, the fascination with standout examples from meaningful years only gets stronger. The 1976 no-mint mark Lincoln cent stands proudly among those coins, quietly reminding us that greatness does not always shout. Sometimes it whispers from the palm of your hand. Imagine holding a small copper coin between your fingers, something that looks ordinary at first glance, something millions of people have spent without a second thought. Now imagine that this same coin carries a story so powerful, so rich with history, mystery, and collector passion, that it can completely change the way you look at pocket change forever. Today, we are diving deep into one of the most talked about modern American coins, the United States of America 1964 D-mint mark Lincoln 1-cent penny, a coin that blends history, rarity, and fascination into a single humble piece of metal. The year 1964 was a turning point in American history. The country was moving through social change, economic growth, and cultural transformation. In the middle of all this, the United States Mint was working around the clock to meet the nation's demand for coins. Pennies, in particular, were in extremely high circulation. People used them every day for groceries, newspapers, bus fares, and candy from corner stores. The Lincoln cent was everywhere, and yet, among the millions produced, some coins quietly stood apart. The Lincoln 1-cent design itself is iconic. Introduced in 1909 to honor the 100th anniversary of Abraham Lincoln's birth, it was the first regular U.S. coin to feature a real historical person. By 1964, the design had already become deeply embedded in American identity. On the front, Abraham Lincoln's calm and thoughtful profile represents unity, perseverance, and leadership. On the back, the familiar design used during the era symbolizes strength and national pride. Now let's talk about the mint mark, because this is where the story becomes truly interesting. The D mint mark indicates that the coin was struck at the Denver Mint. In 1964, the Denver Mint produced an enormous number of Lincoln cents. At first, that might make you think these coins are common and not especially valuable. But coin collecting is never just about how many were made. It is about condition, quality, errors, demand, and the story behind each piece. The 1964 Lincoln penny was struck during a time when the mint was under intense pressure. There was a nationwide coin shortage, and production speed was a top priority. When speed increases, perfection sometimes suffers. This created opportunities for unique variations, striking characteristics, and rare minting anomalies. These subtle differences are invisible to the untrained eye, but to collectors, they are everything. Another major factor that makes this coin fascinating is its metal composition. 1964 pennies were made primarily of copper, giving them that warm reddish tone that collectors love. Copper cents have a special place in numismatics because they age beautifully when preserved properly. A well-kept copper Lincoln cent can glow with luster even decades later, and the color alone can significantly affect its desirability. Condition is absolutely crucial when discussing the value of this coin. Most 1964 pennies found in circulation are heavily worn. Scratches, discoloration, and flattened details are common. But when a coin survives in exceptional condition, especially with sharp details, full mint luster, and minimal contact marks, it enters an entirely different category. These high-grade examples are what collectors chase relentlessly. Then, there are the coins that were never meant to exist in their final form. Mint errors and special striking characteristics can transform a simple penny into a legendary collectible. Off-center strikes, double details, unusual textures, or planchet irregularities all add layers of intrigue. Each error tells a story of a split second inside the minting process when something unexpected happened. These moments of imperfection are often what create perfection in the eyes of collectors. Collectors are drawn not only to rarity, but also to competition. Registry sets, auctions, and private collections fuel intense demand for top-tier examples of the 1964 Lincoln cent. When collectors compete, prices rise dramatically. Owning one of the finest known specimens becomes a badge of honor, a symbol of dedication, patience, and deep appreciation for American coinage. What makes this coin even more compelling is its accessibility. Unlike ancient coins or gold pieces that most people never encounter, the Lincoln penny is something almost everyone has held at some point in their life. That emotional connection adds a powerful layer to its appeal. The idea that something so familiar could be extraordinarily valuable captures the imagination in a way few collectibles can. Stories circulate constantly within the coin collecting community. People talk about jars of old pennies inherited from grandparents, rolls of coins stored away decades ago, or chance discoveries in forgotten drawers. The 1964 Lincoln penny often appears in these conversations, fueling hope and excitement. Even seasoned collectors admit that the thrill of finding an exceptional penny never fades. Grading plays a major role in separating ordinary coins from extraordinary ones. Professional grading services examine coins under magnification, assessing strike quality, surface preservation, luster, and overall eye appeal. A tiny difference in grade can mean a massive difference in desirability. For the 1964 penny, reaching the highest levels of grading is exceptionally difficult, which is exactly why top examples command such intense attention. Historical context also boosts the coin's allure. 1964 was the last full year before major changes in American coinage metals. Soon after, rising copper prices would push the mint toward different compositions. This places the 1964 penny at the end of an era, representing the final chapter of traditional copper cents produced in massive quantities. The Lincoln penny has always symbolized more than money. It represents honesty, humility, and the American dream. The 1964 issue carries all of that symbolism, while also standing as a testament to the chaos, speed, and pressure of mid-20th century minting operations. That blend of artistry and industrial urgency makes it endlessly fascinating. Collectors today study these pennies with microscopes, document their discoveries, and share findings across forums and auctions. Each exceptional coin adds another piece to the puzzle, another data point in the evolving story of this issue. It is not just about owning a coin, but about preserving a fragment of history and understanding why it matters. As time goes on, high-quality examples of the 1964 Lincoln penny become even harder to find. Coins are lost, damaged, or altered, while collector demand continues to grow. This imbalance between supply and demand is what drives serious interest and long-term appreciation. So, the next time you see a simple brown penny, remember this story. Remember that behind its modest appearance could be decades of history, intense collector passion, and extraordinary potential. The 1964 Lincoln 1-cent penny proves that value is not always obvious at first glance, and that even the smallest pieces of our past can carry immense significance. Imagine holding a tiny copper coin in your hand, something most people would ignore, spend, or drop into a jar without a second thought. It looks ordinary. It feels familiar. But what if I told you that this humble penny could quietly carry a story powerful enough to shake the world of coin collecting and make collectors stop, stare, and lean closer? Today we are diving deep into the fascinating story, mystery, and value of the United States of America 1965 no-mint mark Lincoln 1-cent penny, a coin that proves history does not always shout, sometimes it whispers. The year 1965 was a turning point in American history. The nation was changing fast. The civil rights movement was reshaping society, the space race was pushing human ambition beyond Earth, and the economy was under pressure from rising silver prices. Because of this, the United States made dramatic changes to American coinage. Silver was removed from most circulating coins, and new metal compositions were introduced. In the middle of all this change, the Lincoln 1-cent quietly continued its journey, struck not in silver, not in gold, but in a copper-based alloy that still carried the weight of history. The Lincoln cent design itself already had a powerful legacy. First introduced in 1909 to honor the 100th anniversary of Abraham Lincoln's birth, it was the first U.S. coin to feature a real historical figure. By 1965, Americans had been seeing Lincoln's face on pennies for more than half a century. His calm expression, strong profile, and dignified presence symbolized unity, perseverance, and freedom. These values mattered deeply during the turbulent mid-1960s, giving the coin an emotional connection beyond its face value. Now let us talk about the no-mint mark detail, because this is where curiosity really starts to build. On U.S. coins, a mint mark tells you where the coin was made. AD stands for Denver, and S stands for San Francisco, but when there is no mint mark at all, that means the coin was struck at the Philadelphia Mint. In 1965, Philadelphia produced massive numbers of pennies to meet the demands of everyday commerce. Because mint marks were temporarily removed from many coins during this period to discourage hoarding, collectors today pay close attention to small details that separate ordinary coins from extraordinary ones. The 1965 Lincoln cent with no mint mark is common at first glance, but looks can be deceiving. While millions were minted, only a tiny fraction survived in exceptional condition. Most were spent, scratched, stained, and worn down through decades of circulation. Finding one today that looks nearly untouched is like finding a time capsule sealed in copper. Collectors chase condition, and condition is everything when it comes to value. The metal composition of this penny also plays a role in its story. It is made primarily of copper, giving it that warm reddish tone collectors love. Over time, copper reacts with air and moisture, changing color and texture. A well-preserved coin that still shows strong original luster stands out immediately. When light hits the surface and dances across Lincoln's portrait, and the wheat-free memorial design on the reverse, you know you are looking at something special. Speaking of the reverse, the Lincoln Memorial design had only been in use for a few years by 1965. Introduced in 1959, it replaced the wheat ears design and added a new layer of symbolism. The Lincoln Memorial is not just a building, it is a monument to leadership, sacrifice, and democracy. On some high-quality strikes, you can even see a tiny statue of Lincoln inside the memorial, a detail many people miss entirely. This level of craftsmanship adds to the appeal and collectability of the coin. What truly separates an average penny from a legendary one is strike quality and preservation. Sharp details in Lincoln's hair, clear lettering in the words "In God We Trust," strong rims, and a clean memorial on the back are signs of a premium specimen. Coins graded at the highest levels by professional grading services become stars in the numismatic world. These coins are protected in sealed holders, authenticated, and assigned a grade that reflects their condition down to the smallest flaw. Collectors are not just buying metal. They are buying history, rarity, and prestige. Owning a top-grade 1965 no-mint mark Lincoln cent is like owning a snapshot of America during a transformative era. It represents a moment when the nation was redefining itself, and even the smallest coin carried that energy forward. Another reason this coin attracts attention is the psychology of overlooked treasures. People love the idea that something ordinary could be extraordinary. The thought that a penny from pocket change could be worth a fortune sparks excitement and hope. It turns everyday objects into potential discoveries and keeps people searching through jars, drawers, and old collections. Stories circulate in the collecting community about individuals who found rare high-grade pennies tucked away in rolls or inherited collections. These stories fuel the legend and keep interest alive. While most 1965 pennies are worth only face value, the exceptional examples break all expectations. They become auction highlights, conversation starters, and prize centerpieces in elite collections. Condition rarity is the key phrase here. When supply is high but top-quality examples are scarce, prices can climb dramatically. This is exactly what has happened with the finest known examples of this coin. When two determined collectors want the same perfect piece, competition drives value upward. Auctions become intense, bids rise quickly, and records are set. Collectors also appreciate the stability of classic U.S. coins. Unlike trends that come and go, Lincoln cents have a permanent place in American culture. They are taught in schools, featured in history books, and passed down through generations. This enduring popularity supports long-term interest and value. If you ever come across a 1965 Lincoln cent with no mint mark, do not dismiss it immediately. Look closely. Examine the color, the shine, the sharpness of the details. Even if it is not a top-grade rarity, it still connects you to a powerful chapter in American history. And if by chance it is an exceptional specimen, you could be holding something truly remarkable. Coin collecting is not just about money, it is about curiosity, patience, and appreciation for the past. Each coin tells a story, and some stories are far more valuable than they appear at first glance. The 1965 no-mint mark Lincoln 1-cent penny is a perfect example of how history, condition, and demand can transform a simple object into a treasure. So next time you see a penny, pause for a moment. Think about where it has been, what it has seen, and what it might be worth beyond its copper shell. Because sometimes, the smallest coin carries the biggest surprise. Imagine holding a small, ordinary-looking copper coin in your hand. It's light, familiar, something most people would barely notice if it were sitting at the bottom of a jar or lost between couch cushions. But now imagine that this same coin carries a story so rich, so deeply tied to American history, that collectors around the world quietly dream of owning it. Today, we're diving into the fascinating world of the United States of America 1967 no-mint mark Lincoln 1-cent penny, a coin that proves even the smallest denomination can carry enormous intrigue, mystery, and potential value. At first glance, the 1967 Lincoln penny looks almost identical to countless others. Abraham Lincoln's dignified profile faces right, calm and resolute, just as it has since 1909. Designed by Victor David Brenner, this portrait was the first time a real person appeared on a regularly circulating U.S. coin. By 1967, Lincoln had already been gazing from pennies for nearly 6 decades, silently witnessing wars, economic booms, cultural revolutions, and dramatic shifts in American society. The year 1967 itself is a powerful moment in U.S. history. America was deep in the Vietnam War. The civil rights movement was reshaping the nation. Music, fashion, and culture were exploding with change. While all of this was happening, millions of pennies were being struck and released into everyday circulation. These coins passed through grocery stores, gas stations, school cafeterias, and movie theaters. Completely unaware of the historic times they were part of. One detail that instantly catches a collector's eye is the absence of a mint mark. On this penny, you won't find a tiny letter beneath the date. That's because it was struck at the Philadelphia Mint, which traditionally did not use mint marks on pennies during that era. For new collectors, this might seem unimportant, but seasoned numismatists know that no mint mark coins often hold unique significance, especially when paired with certain conditions, errors, or exceptional preservation. Now let's talk about what this penny is made of, because 1967 sits at a fascinating point in U.S. coinage history. This was before the major shift away from traditional copper compositions. The Lincoln cent of this period was primarily made of copper, giving it that warm reddish-brown tone that many collectors find irresistible. Over time, pennies like this can develop a range of colors, from deep chocolate brown to bright red, depending on how they were stored and handled. Condition is everything in the world of coin collecting. Most 1967 pennies were heavily circulated. They jingled in pockets, slid across counters, and suffered decades of wear. Scratches, dull surfaces, and softened details are common. Because of this, finding one in exceptional condition is incredibly difficult. When a penny survives decades with sharp details, original luster, and minimal marks, it instantly stands out as something special. Collectors carefully examine Lincoln's hair, cheek, and jawline. They look closely at the word Liberty and the date. On the reverse side, the Lincoln Memorial must appear crisp and well-defined, with strong lines and clear steps. Any weakness in these areas can drastically affect desirability. A truly remarkable example looks almost frozen in time, as if it somehow escaped the chaos of circulation altogether. Another layer of fascination comes from minting quirks and subtle variations. During the 1960s, the U.S. Mint was under immense pressure to produce huge quantities of coins to meet public demand. Speed often mattered more than perfection. This environment sometimes resulted in slight errors, unusual strikes, or coins with exceptional qualities that were never meant to be special. Today, those accidental differences can mean everything. The 1967 no mint mark penny has become a quiet star among collectors who appreciate understated rarity. It's not flashy like gold coins or massive silver dollars. Instead, it whispers its importance. It challenges the assumption that only old or exotic coins are worth attention. It reminds us that even something as common as a penny can become extraordinary under the right circumstances. What truly fuels excitement is the idea of discovery. Somewhere out there, a coin jar might still hold a remarkable example. A forgotten roll tucked away in a drawer could contain a penny preserved in near-perfect condition. This sense of possibility keeps collectors searching, examining, and hoping. Every 1967 penny becomes a question mark. Is this just another cent, or is it something more? The Lincoln penny also carries emotional weight. For many people, pennies are tied to childhood memories. saving coins in jars, finding one on the sidewalk, making wishes. The 1967 penny connects personal nostalgia with national history. Holding it is like holding a tiny time capsule from a transformative era in America. In the numismatic community, respect grows for coins that were once overlooked. As time passes, fewer pristine examples survive. Collectors become more selective. Standards rise. What was once considered ordinary slowly becomes exceptional. This shift has already begun with certain Lincoln cents, and 1967 is firmly part of that conversation. Professional grading plays a crucial role here. When a coin is evaluated by experts and sealed in a protective holder, its condition is officially recognized. High-grade examples can cause serious buzz. Collectors talk. Auction houses take notice. Suddenly, a humble penny commands attention far beyond its face value. It's important to understand that value is never just about metal. It's about history, condition, rarity, and demand all coming together at the same moment. The 1967 no-mint Mark Lincoln penny sits at a crossroads of all these factors. It represents a year of upheaval, a familiar design, and a production story shaped by intense national demand. For collectors, owning such a coin is about more than money. It's about pride. It's about knowing you have something special that many people overlook. It's about appreciating the beauty in small details and understanding the deeper story behind an everyday object. The next time you see a penny dated 1967, don't dismiss it too quickly. Take a closer look. Feel its weight. Study its surfaces. Imagine where it's been and what it's witnessed. That tiny coin may have passed through countless hands, survived decades of change, and quietly waited for someone to recognize its true significance. In the world of coin collecting, surprises often come in the smallest packages. The 1967 no-mint Mark Lincoln 1-cent penny is a perfect example of how history, rarity, and condition can transform a simple coin into something extraordinary. Imagine holding a tiny copper coin in your hand, something most people would pass without a second glance. It feels light, ordinary, almost invisible in a world full of flashy collectibles. But sometimes, history hides in the smallest places. Sometimes, a single penny can carry a story so powerful that it connects presidents, astronauts, economic change, and the dreams of an entire nation. Today, we are diving deep into one of those hidden stories, the United States of America 1969 D-mint Mark Lincoln 1-cent penny, a coin that looks simple but speaks volumes. Let's travel back in time to the year 1969. The United States was buzzing with energy, tension, hope, and transformation. This was the year humans first walked on the moon. Television screens across the country glowed with black and white images of astronauts stepping onto lunar soil, while millions watched in awe. At the same time, America was navigating social change, cultural revolutions, and economic shifts. Every coin minted during this period quietly absorbed the atmosphere of that era, and the Lincoln 1-cent penny was no exception. The Lincoln penny itself already had a rich legacy by 1969. Introduced in 1909 to honor the 100th birthday of Abraham Lincoln, it was the first circulating United States coin to feature a real historical person. Lincoln's calm and thoughtful portrait symbolized unity, resilience, and leadership. By the late 1960s, this image had become deeply familiar, resting in the pockets and purses of everyday Americans, silently witnessing the rhythm of daily life. Now let's focus on the D-mint mark. That small letter tells a big story. The D stands for the Denver Mint, one of the most important minting facilities in the country. Coins struck in Denver were known for their strong details and consistent quality. In 1969, the Denver Mint was operating at full speed, producing millions of pennies to meet the growing demand of a booming population and an expanding economy. These coins were meant for circulation, not for collectors, which makes special examples from this year even more fascinating. The composition of the 1969 Lincoln cent is another important piece of the puzzle. This penny was made primarily of copper, giving it that warm reddish tone that collectors love. It was part of the final era before major changes in metal composition would take place. Rising copper prices in the following years would force the United States Mint to rethink how pennies were made. So this coin represents the closing chapter of a classic copper tradition. At first glance, the design seems straightforward. On the front, Abraham Lincoln gazes to the right, his expression steady and dignified. The words "Liberty" and "In God We Trust" frame his portrait, while the year sits boldly below. Just beneath the date, the D Mint mark quietly announces its origin. On the back, the Lincoln Memorial stands tall, a symbol of remembrance and national pride. If you look closely, you can even see a tiny representation of Lincoln inside the memorial, a detail that often goes unnoticed but adds depth and artistry to the design. So why does this particular penny capture so much attention? The answer lies in condition, rarity, and history combined. While millions were minted, only a small fraction survived in exceptional condition. Most were spent, scratched, worn, and lost over decades of circulation. Coins that escaped heavy use, especially those with sharp details, full original luster, and minimal imperfections, became incredibly desirable to collectors. Even more intriguing are the subtle variations that can occur during the minting process. Slight differences in strike quality, die alignment, and surface texture can dramatically affect a coin's appeal. Collectors spend years studying these details, searching for that one example that stands above the rest. A 1969 D penny preserved in remarkable condition becomes more than just a coin. It becomes a time capsule. This is where emotion enters the picture. Coin collecting is not just about metal and numbers. It is about stories. Imagine a penny minted while rockets roared into space, while music and protest filled the streets, while a nation questioned itself and dreamed bigger than ever before. That penny might have passed through countless hands, bought newspapers, paid for candy, or rested quietly in a jar before being rediscovered decades later. For collectors, finding a standout 1969 D Lincoln cent is like uncovering a forgotten chapter of American history. It represents craftsmanship, endurance, and survival against odds. It reminds us that even the smallest objects can gain extraordinary meaning over time. As interest in numismatics continues to grow, more people are realizing that value is not always obvious at first glance. A penny may seem insignificant, but in the right condition and context, it can become a prized treasure. Auctions, private collections, and grading services have all played a role in bringing attention to rare and high-quality examples of this coin. Each appearance on the market sparks excitement and curiosity, drawing in both seasoned collectors and newcomers alike. What makes this even more fascinating is the contrast between face value and collector value. 1 cent is the smallest denomination in American currency, often overlooked or even discarded. Yet, under the right circumstances, that humble coin can transcend its original purpose. It becomes art, history, and investment wrapped into one. The 1969 D Lincoln 1 cent penny stands as a reminder that history does not always announce itself loudly. Sometimes it whispers through everyday objects. It teaches patience, attention to detail, and respect for the past. It encourages us to look twice at what we think we already understand. So the next time you see a penny, think about the journey it might have taken. Think about the year it was born, the hands it passed through, and the moments it quietly witnessed. Imagine holding a single penny in your hand. A coin so small, so ordinary, that most people wouldn't even bother picking it up if they saw it lying on the ground. Now imagine that same penny being worth more than many cars, more than luxury watches, more than a year's salary for some people. Sounds unbelievable, right? But this is exactly why coin collecting is one of the most fascinating hobbies in the world. because sometimes history hides incredible value in the smallest places. Today, we're talking about one of the most talked about modern Lincoln cents ever made. The United States of America 1970 D Mint Mark Lincoln 1-cent penny. A coin that looks simple at first glance, but carries a story, mystery, and potential value that has captured the attention of collectors for decades. Back in 1970, America was going through a time of massive change. The Vietnam War was still shaping global politics, music was evolving into something bold and rebellious, and everyday Americans were spending pennies without a second thought. The Lincoln cent was already a familiar part of daily life, minted in enormous numbers, and used constantly in commerce. Nobody at the time imagined that one of these everyday coins could one day become highly desirable. The Denver Mint was responsible for producing millions of Lincoln cents that year. That small D Mint mark under the date quietly signaled where the coin was struck. For most people, it meant absolutely nothing. But for collectors, that tiny letter would later become one of the most important details on the coin. The design of the Lincoln penny itself is iconic. On the front, Abraham Lincoln's portrait stands as a symbol of unity, leadership, and American history. Victor David Brenner's design had already become deeply ingrained in American culture by that point. The inscription "In God We Trust" sits proudly above Lincoln's head, while liberty and the date flank him on either side. It's a design that feels timeless, serious, and unmistakably American. Flip the coin over, and you see the Lincoln Memorial column standing tall, representing strength and stability, with Lincoln himself seated inside, visible even on such a tiny canvas. United States of America arches across the top, while 1 cent anchors the bottom. At first glance, it's just another penny. But for those who know what to look for, the details are everything. What makes the 1970 D Lincoln cent so interesting isn't just when it was made, or where it was minted, but how it was made. This era was a transitional period for U.S. coinage. The mint was pushing equipment to its limits, producing massive quantities to meet demand. When that happens, mistakes, variations, and anomalies begin to appear. Some 1970 D pennies were struck with exceptional sharpness, while others showed unusual textures, weak strikes, or subtle differences in lettering. A few rare examples display characteristics that separate them from the millions of ordinary cents produced that same year. These small differences are exactly what collectors hunt for, often spending years searching rolls of pennies for just one special coin. Condition plays a massive role in value. A penny that circulated heavily, with worn details and scratches, might only be worth face value. But a coin that somehow survived in pristine condition, untouched by circulation, becomes something entirely different. When a coin retains its original luster, sharp edges, and flawless surfaces, it tells a story of preservation against all odds. High-grade examples of the 1970 D Lincoln cent are especially difficult to find. Most were used immediately in everyday transactions, bouncing from pocket to pocket, cash register to cash register. Finding one that looks as fresh today as it did the day it left the Denver Mint is incredibly rare. Collectors also pay close attention to strike quality. A perfectly centered strike, full details in Lincoln's hair, clear lines in the Lincoln Memorial, and crisp lettering can elevate a coin from ordinary to extraordinary. These qualities aren't accidental. They represent a perfect moment in the minting process, where everything aligned just right. Another layer of fascination comes from the emotional side of collecting. For many people, pennies like this one were part of childhood memories. Buying candy, saving loose change in jars, or learning the value of money 1 cent at a time. When a collector holds a 1970 D Lincoln cent today, they aren't just holding copper and zinc. They're holding a piece of American life from a specific moment in time. The market for rare coins is driven by passion as much as rarity. When collectors discover that a seemingly common coin has the potential to be extremely valuable, interest skyrockets. Stories spread, auctions gain attention, and suddenly everyone starts checking their spare change. That's exactly what has happened with certain examples of the 1970 D Lincoln penny. Professional grading services play a huge role in determining worth. When a coin is authenticated and graded at the highest levels, it becomes more than just a collectible. It becomes an investment-grade historical artifact. Encased in protective holders, these top-tier examples are preserved for future generations and traded among serious collectors. What makes this coin especially exciting is that it still feels accessible. Unlike ancient coins locked away in museums, the 1970 D Lincoln cent is something that once passed through ordinary hands. That idea keeps hope alive for collectors and viewers watching this video. The thought that something so valuable could still be discovered fuels endless fascination. Coin collecting isn't about greed. It's about curiosity, history, and the thrill of discovery. It's about slowing down and paying attention to details most people overlook. The 1970 D Lincoln cent embodies that spirit perfectly. It reminds us that value isn't always obvious, and that sometimes the most extraordinary things hide in plain sight. As time goes on, coins like this become harder to find in top condition. Every year, more are damaged, lost, or destroyed. That scarcity only increases interest and demand among collectors, who appreciate both the history and craftsmanship behind the coin. So, the next time you see a penny, don't dismiss it too quickly. Look at the date. Look for the mint mark. Notice the condition. Because somewhere out there, a small copper coin from 1970 carries a story far bigger than its size. Imagine holding a tiny copper coin in your hand. At first glance, it feels ordinary, almost forgettable. But the moment you look closer, the story begins to unfold. This is not just any penny. This is a United States of America 1971 mint mark Lincoln 1-cent coin, a piece of history quietly hiding in plain sight. A coin that traveled through pockets, cash registers, and generations, carrying with it a mystery that has fascinated collectors and coin lovers for decades. The Lincoln penny has always been more than spare change. Ever since its introduction in 1909, it has symbolized American values, leadership, and endurance. By the time 1971 arrived, America itself was standing at a crossroads. The Vietnam War was reshaping public opinion, the space race had already placed humans on the moon, and economic uncertainty was beginning to stir. In that very moment, the San Francisco Mint struck the 1971 Lincoln cent, quietly adding another chapter to American numismatic history. What makes the 1971 penny so intriguing is not just its age, but its identity. The mint mark tells us it was produced at the San Francisco Mint, a facility known for its precision and high-quality coinage. Unlike some years where coins were produced in massive numbers across multiple mints, San Francisco's output carried a reputation for sharp strikes and cleaner details. This immediately gives the coin an edge in the eyes of collectors. The obverse of the coin features the iconic portrait of President Abraham Lincoln, designed by Victor David Brenner. Lincoln's calm expression, the fine details in his hair and coat, and the dignified profile remind us why this design has endured for over a century. On the 1971 penny, sharp examples reveal crisp lettering in the words Liberty and In God We Trust. These details matter because in the world of coin collecting, condition can transform a simple cent into a treasure. Turn the coin over, and you see the familiar Lincoln Memorial on the reverse. This design, introduced in 1959, symbolized respect and remembrance. On well-preserved 1971 pennies, the memorial's columns appear clean and well-defined, and in the finest examples, even the tiny statue of Lincoln inside the memorial can be seen. That level of detail is one of the reasons collectors obsess over this coin. Now let's talk about composition, because this is where things get even more interesting. The 1971 Lincoln cent was struck primarily in a copper-based alloy, before the United States transitioned to zinc pennies in the early 1980s. This gives the coin a warm, rich tone that modern pennies simply do not have. Copper coins age beautifully, developing unique shades and natural luster over time, making every example slightly different from the next. While millions of 1971 pennies were produced, not all of them are created equal. Most circulated heavily and show signs of wear, scratches, and fading. However, a small number were preserved in exceptional condition, never entering circulation. These coins often come from mint sets, or were carefully stored by collectors who understood their future potential. These pristine examples are where true value begins to emerge. Collectors pay close attention to strike quality, surface preservation, color, and originality. A deep red copper color, free of spots or discoloration, can dramatically increase desirability. Coins graded at the highest levels by professional grading services become elite pieces, chased by serious collectors worldwide. The difference between an average coin and a top-graded example can be astonishing. Another layer of fascination comes from errors and variations. While the standard 1971 penny is already collectible, certain striking anomalies, die variations, or unusual mint characteristics can push interest even further. These small imperfections, once considered mistakes, are now celebrated as unique fingerprints of the minting process. They turn an ordinary coin into a one-of-a-kind artifact. Beyond technical details, there is emotional value. Coins like the 1971 Lincoln cent connect us to a specific moment in time. This penny may have been minted during a year when music, fashion, politics, and culture were rapidly changing. It may have been held by someone buying groceries, paying for gas, or saving change in a jar. Every coin carries unseen stories. For YouTube audiences, this coin represents possibility. The idea that something so small could be worth so much captures imagination instantly. It sparks curiosity and fuels the thrill of searching through old collections, inherited boxes, and forgotten drawers. It's the dream that keeps collectors hunting and viewers watching. The market for rare and high-grade Lincoln cents has grown steadily over the years. As more collectors enter the hobby and supply of top-condition coins becomes tighter, demand continues to rise. Coins that were once overlooked are now centerpieces in prestigious collections. The 1971 penny stands proudly among them when found in exceptional condition. Authentication and grading play a crucial role in determining worth. Professional grading not only confirms authenticity, but also assigns a grade that directly impacts market value. A top-rated 1971 Lincoln cent is no longer just a coin. It becomes an investment-grade collectible, sought after by investors and historians alike. What truly elevates this penny is the balance between accessibility and rarity. While many people recognize the Lincoln cent, very few understand the hidden potential of specific mint marks and conditions. This gap between common knowledge and expert insight is where excitement lives. It's what transforms a casual viewer into a passionate collector. The 1971 Lincoln 1 cent penny is proof that history doesn't always come wrapped in gold or silver. Sometimes, it comes in copper, quiet and unassuming, waiting for the right moment to be discovered. It teaches us that value is not always obvious, and that patience, knowledge, and curiosity can uncover extraordinary rewards. So, the next time you come across an old penny, take a moment. Look closely. Check the date. Search for that small mint mark. Because what appears to be just 1 cent could represent decades of history, craftsmanship, and collector passion. Imagine holding something so small, so ordinary, that you've probably ignored it your entire life. A single copper-colored coin resting quietly in your palm. It feels light, almost insignificant. You might even toss it into a drawer, a jar, or between couch cushions without a second thought. But what if I told you that this tiny piece of metal could carry a story powerful enough to shake the world of coin collectors, historians, and treasure hunters alike? Today, we're diving deep into one of the most fascinating modern American coins ever produced. The United States of America 1978 Lincoln 1-cent penny with no mint mark. This coin comes from a time when America itself was going through change. The late 1970s were a period of transition. Gas lines, economic uncertainty, cultural shifts, and political tension all shaped the nation. Yet, amid all of this, millions of pennies were quietly being struck and released into circulation. Most of them would be spent, lost, scratched, and forgotten. But a small number would survive in remarkable condition, carrying with them a value far beyond their original purpose. The Lincoln 1-cent penny has always been more than just currency. First introduced in 1909 to honor the 100th birthday of Abraham Lincoln, it became the first circulating U.S. coin to feature a real historical figure. By 1978, Lincoln's familiar profile had already been in Americans' pockets for nearly 70 years. The design by Victor David Brenner had become iconic, symbolizing unity, perseverance, and the enduring spirit of the nation. What makes the 1978 penny particularly intriguing is the absence of a mint mark. Coins without a mint mark were produced at the Philadelphia Mint, which at the time did not include its identifying letter on most coins. While millions were minted, only a very small fraction were preserved in flawless or near-flawless condition. And in the world of coin collecting, condition is everything. At first glance, a 1978 Lincoln penny looks completely ordinary. Lincoln faces right, his expression calm and resolute. The words, "In God we trust," arc above his head, with "Liberty" to the left and the date neatly placed to the right. Turn the coin over, and you'll see the Lincoln Memorial, a symbol of honor and remembrance. Look closely, and Lincoln himself can be seen seated inside the memorial, a tiny yet powerful detail that collectors admire. But beneath this familiar design lies a deeper story. During this period, pennies were still primarily made of copper, giving them a warm reddish tone that collectors prize today. The quality of the strike, the sharpness of the details, and the original luster all play a role in determining whether a coin is merely old or truly exceptional. Many 1978 pennies were heavily circulated. They bumped into other coins, scraped against surfaces, and lost their original shine. However, a select few escaped this fate. Some were pulled from rolls early, others stored away unknowingly, protected from damage. These rare survivors can display mirror-like surfaces, razor-sharp lettering, and flawless fields that look almost as if they were struck yesterday. Collectors pay close attention to even the smallest imperfections. A single mark, a tiny scratch, or a dull spot can dramatically affect value. That's why high-grade examples of the 1978 no-mint mark penny are so fiercely sought after. When one appears in exceptional condition, it becomes a centerpiece, not just another coin. The fascination grows even stronger when you consider how many people have handled pennies without realizing what they might be holding. Countless jars, piggy banks, and inherited collections still contain these coins. Somewhere out there, a 1978 penny could be sitting quietly, waiting to be discovered and recognized for what it truly is. Coin grading plays a massive role in separating ordinary pennies from legendary ones. Professional grading services examine coins under magnification, evaluating every detail with precision. They look at surface preservation, strike quality, luster, and overall eye appeal. Only the very best examples earn the highest grades, and only those top-tier coins achieve jaw-dropping valuations. What makes this particular penny even more compelling is how it bridges the gap between everyday life and high-level collecting. It wasn't a special issue. It wasn't a commemorative. It wasn't meant to be rare. It was simply money. And yet, through time, survival, and condition, it transformed into something extraordinary. Stories like this are what fuel the passion of collectors. The idea that a humble coin, once used to buy candy or make change at a gas station, can become a prized artifact is endlessly captivating. It reminds us that history isn't always locked behind museum glass. Sometimes, it jingles quietly in our pockets. The 1978 Lincoln penny also represents a turning point in American coinage. Just a few years later, the composition of pennies would change dramatically, making earlier copper-rich examples even more desirable. This adds another layer of historical importance, anchoring the coin firmly in a specific era of U.S. monetary history. As collectors compete to own the finest known examples, prices rise, records are broken, and interest continues to grow. Auctions featuring top-grade specimens attract attention from around the world. Each sale tells a story not just of money, but of preservation, patience, and passion. What truly sets this coin apart is the contrast between its face value and its potential worth. One cent versus a life-changing sum. That contrast sparks curiosity, hope, and excitement. It's the reason people still search through rolls of coins, examine old collections, and learn the fine details of numismatics. The 1978 no-mint mark Lincoln penny stands as a symbol of hidden value. It teaches us that rarity isn't always about low production numbers. Sometimes, rarity is about survival, condition, and timing. It's about a simple object enduring long enough to be seen in a new light. So next time you come across a penny, pause for a moment. Look at the date. Check the mint mark. Notice the color, the shine, the details. Because history has shown us that even the smallest coin can carry an extraordinary story. Imagine holding something so small, so ordinary, that you've probably ignored it your entire life. A single copper-colored coin resting quietly in your palm. It feels light, almost insignificant. You might even toss it into a drawer, a jar, or between couch cushions without a second thought. But what if I told you that this tiny piece of metal could carry a story powerful enough to shake the world of coin collectors, historians, and treasure hunters alike? Today, we're diving deep into one of the most fascinating modern American coins ever produced. The United States of America 1978 Lincoln 1-cent penny with no mint mark. This coin comes from a time when America itself was going through change. The late 1970s were a period of transition. Gas lines, economic uncertainty, cultural shifts, and political tension all shaped the nation. Yet, amid all of this, millions of pennies were quietly being struck and released into circulation. Most of them would be spent, lost, scratched, and forgotten. But a small number would survive in remarkable condition, carrying with them a value far beyond their original purpose. The Lincoln 1-cent penny has always been more than just currency. First introduced in 1909 to honor the 100th birthday of Abraham Lincoln, it became the first circulating U.S. coin to feature a real historical figure. By 1978, Lincoln's familiar profile had already been in Americans' pockets for nearly 70 years. The design by Victor David Brenner had become iconic, symbolizing unity, perseverance, and the enduring spirit of the nation. What makes the 1978 penny particularly intriguing is the absence of a mint mark. Coins without a mint mark were produced at the Philadelphia Mint, which at the time did not include its identifying letter on most coins. While millions were minted, only a very small fraction were preserved in flawless or near-flawless condition. And in the world of coin collecting, condition is everything. At first glance, a 1978 Lincoln penny looks completely ordinary. Lincoln faces right, his expression calm and resolute. The words, "In God we trust," arc above his head, with "Liberty" to the left and the date neatly placed to the right. Turn the coin over, and you'll see the Lincoln Memorial, a symbol of honor and remembrance. Look closely, and Lincoln himself can be seen seated inside the memorial, a tiny yet powerful detail that collectors admire. But beneath this familiar design lies a deeper story. During this period, pennies were still primarily made of copper, giving them a warm reddish tone that collectors prize today. The quality of the strike, the sharpness of the details, and the original luster all play a role in determining whether a coin is merely old or truly exceptional. Many 1978 pennies were heavily circulated. They bumped into other coins, scraped against surfaces, and lost their original shine. However, a select few escaped this fate. Some were pulled from rolls early, others stored away unknowingly, protected from damage. These rare survivors can display mirror-like surfaces, razor-sharp lettering, and flawless fields that look almost as if they were struck yesterday. Collectors pay close attention to even the smallest imperfections. A single mark, a tiny scratch, or a dull spot can dramatically affect value. That's why high-grade examples of the 1978 no-mint mark penny are so fiercely sought after. When one appears in exceptional condition, it becomes a centerpiece, not just another coin. The fascination grows even stronger when you consider how many people have handled pennies without realizing what they might be holding. Countless jars, piggy banks, and inherited collections still contain these coins. Somewhere out there, a 1978 penny could be sitting quietly, waiting to be discovered and recognized for what it truly is. Coin grading plays a massive role in separating ordinary pennies from legendary ones. Professional grading services examine coins under magnification, evaluating every detail with precision. They look at surface preservation, strike quality, luster, and overall eye appeal. Only the very best examples earn the highest grades, and only those top-tier coins achieve jaw-dropping valuations. What makes this particular penny even more compelling is how it bridges the gap between everyday life and high-level collecting. It wasn't a special issue. It wasn't a commemorative. It wasn't meant to be rare. It was simply money. And yet, through time, survival, and condition, it transformed into something extraordinary. Stories like this are what fuel the passion of collectors. The idea that a humble coin, once used to buy candy or make change at a gas station, can become a prized artifact is endlessly captivating. It reminds us that history isn't always locked behind museum glass. Sometimes, it jingles quietly in our pockets. The 1978 Lincoln penny also represents a turning point in American coinage. Just a few years later, the composition of pennies would change dramatically, making earlier copper-rich examples even more desirable. This adds another layer of historical importance, anchoring the coin firmly in a specific era of U.S. monetary history. As collectors compete to own the finest known examples, prices rise, records are broken, and interest continues to grow. Auctions featuring top-grade specimens attract attention from around the world. Each sale tells a story not just of money, but of preservation, patience, and passion. What truly sets this coin apart is the contrast between its face value and its potential worth. One cent versus a life-changing sum. That contrast sparks curiosity, hope, and excitement. It's the reason people still search through rolls of coins, examine old collections, and learn the fine details of numismatics. The 1978 no-mint mark Lincoln penny stands as a symbol of hidden value. It teaches us that rarity isn't always about low production numbers. Sometimes, rarity is about survival, condition, and timing. It's about a simple object enduring long enough to be seen in a new light. So next time you come across a penny, pause for a moment. Look at the date. Check the mint mark. Notice the color, the shine, the details. Because history has shown us that even the smallest coin can carry an extraordinary story.